showing up. We're getting started on our bellies. And we're going to take a crocodile pose to begin with this morning. And in this crocodile pose, it's going to be a little bit different than like our normal crocodile. In crocodile, we normally lie down on our belly and stack our hands and rest our head on the back of our hands, our forehead on the back of our hands. But today, I want to encourage you maybe to take your hands and to bring them down into your hip creases, into your low belly. Yeah, and then you may turn your head over to one side or the other here. Allow those elbows to just kind of drop out to the side so that your upper body gets a nice opening. Good. Oh my goodness. And of course I forgot to tell you to start the music. I'm sorry. One day this will be easier and will come a little bit more naturally to me. But yeah, we're going to begin with the music. Pressing play when you are ready. Awesome, yeah, and then returning yourself to your belly, tucking your hands underneath your hip points. You might even take your fingers and sort of palpate that low belly just a little bit. You might palpate the hip crease just a little bit. Good, before allowing your arms to rest, your hands to rest, your breathing to become nice and full. Good, and notice the tip of the tongue touching the space just behind the teeth. Good, and your big toes touching the floor. Good, and I wanted to start this morning with a poem by Mary Oliver, a good one, one that I really love and that is speaking to me a whole lot in these days and in this past week in particular. It's called I Worried. Right? I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I wrong? Was I right? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing and gave it up and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang. And I'm thinking about this idea of worrying, which I think is kind of getting to many of us right now. We're experiencing this sense of worry because things are starting to reopen, maybe. The world seems to be, or I don't know, maybe it's just like folks around us are starting to do all the things they used to do, and maybe we're concerned that it's just not the right time yet. Right? This sense of who knows what's next. If overthinking has become your norm, and if you're feeling that free-floating anxiety, it might be nice just to find a little bit of a deeper breath here. Just remembering that we can't control everything, right? Good, a deep breath to really lift the low back up and away. And you might feel your lower belly expand down towards the mat and into your hands, giving yourself a chance to really like hold yourself. Nice. A couple more breaths. Okay, Okay, and then from here, let's take the arms out into a T shape with your palms facing down. We're not going to take any really big stretch right now, but I just want to spend a moment like hugging the ground. When I'm feeling ungrounded, when I'm feeling a little bit anxious, one of the most therapeutic things that I found for myself is to actually like connect with the ground, to really make contact with the floor. You might even decide to take your feet and bring them out a little bit wider so that your legs are almost like in a V shape. Maybe your toes point out to the sides. Good, taking up space. Today we're going to focus in on the spleen meridian. And I felt really silly this morning when I realized that I wasn't even totally sure what the spleen does, like the organ in our body, what it does. And it turns out that it filters and kind of recycles our blood and is a pretty critical part of our immune system. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the spleen meridian, there are different emotions that are associated with each meridian. And for the spleen, the positive emotions are trust and honesty. We've got openness and acceptance, equanimity, balance, and impartiality. Those are the positive emotions, but on the dark side of things, on the negative side of things, we've got worry and overthinking and pensiveness, obsessiveness, remorse, regret, and self-doubt. And then the spleen meridian starts at the tip of our big toe and then runs up the inner edge of the foot there, the big toe side of the foot, up into the inner ankle and the inside line of the leg. And then there are a couple of points right there at your hip crease, 3 points along the sides of your belly, and then alongside the upper ribs, the outer part of those ribs, there are 4 more points. So we're just going to focus in on those areas today. Good. And now we're going to take a half frog pose. So let's pull the right knee up towards the right side of the chest. Okay, as you pull the right knee up towards the right side of the chest, it might be nice to take your blanket and kind of snuggle that blanket underneath your hip crease. Okay, like right up into your groin. Yeah. Good, and then you can settle your head down here. Okay, so interestingly enough, when we're thinking about the meridians, there are points located along the meridian, but they don't necessarily indicate the start and the finish. So it's true that this meridian starts at the tip of the big toe, but it doesn't end up there at the ribs. It actually moves up into the mouth, the underside of your tongue. So while you're hanging out here in this half frog shape with your right knee pulled up to the side, see if you can take the tip of your tongue and slide it along the roof of the mouth towards the back, essentially stretching the bottom of the tongue. Right, what does that feel like? Is it really weird? For me, it's a little awkward. Good, eventually allow your tongue to rest. Good, and let your eyes rest too. Notice what your jaw is doing. Nice, and let's take another 10 deep breaths or so right here in this half frog pose. Good, and if you feel so inclined, it might be nice to stretch that right leg out long and to the side so that the entire inside line of the leg is looking down at the floor. Okay, notice what the hip is doing. If it feels like too intense or like not the right thing, you can always rebend that knee. Good, about 5 more breaths right here. All right, let's begin to slide that right leg nice and long behind you. And then we're gonna find, maybe find a strap. We're gonna take that quadricep stretch here. So taking your hand, your left hand to the top of your left foot, reach back there. Your chest might stay on the floor, or you might decide to prop yourself up on that right arm if that makes reaching the foot a little bit more accessible. The strap is super helpful too. We can always wrap the strap. Yeah, maybe even like hold that strap over your shoulder. Good, finding a nice big opening through the quads here, top of the foot. Nice, and spend 7 or 8 breaths like this. Good, and just take notice of where your mind is right now. Sometimes the mind likes to run off. Good, or kind of spin itself in circles. Good, so without any need to change things, just notice the state of things in your mind this morning. Good, last deep breath here. Right, and then go ahead and release that right foot behind you. And we're gonna prop up onto both elbows. So as you prop up onto both elbows, shake your hips from side to side. And think about like really shaking so that you can feel the meat of your glutes moving a little bit. Don't be afraid to really like shake your butt here. There's something really, really nice about that sensation of like your muscles jiggling around the bones. It's kind of nice. Good. Let's take a moment here in our space pose with the elbows underneath the shoulders. And if you want to take the head and neck around in a big circle, that could be nice too. Especially if you hold tension from anxiety up in your shoulders, up in the back of the neck. Maybe it's tension from doing yard work or riding your bike. Okay, but see what's going on in the upper back here for just a little bit. And then take notice of that space in between your lower ribs and the top of your pelvis, kind of on the edge of your belly. So not close to the center exactly, but out a little bit further. Good, think about drawing the elbows back energetically while drawing the lower ribs forward. Good, and notice your big toes touching the floor. Right, and then go ahead and set yourself back down. And we're just gonna repeat that here. Let's stretch the arms out nice and wide. Let's take up some space on the floor. Again, shaking those hips out so that your lower back releases just a touch from that compressed state. Good, 3 more breaths here on our bellies. Good, and then let's draw that left knee up towards the left side of the chest, coming into your half frog. And yeah, maybe snuggling the blanket underneath your groin so that you place a little bit of pressure there. Good, and as you find this shape, see what your upper body is doing. Let it get nice and relaxed and settled if possible. And just know that your arms can be doing two different things. Like maybe one is tucked under your chest and the other one is out long. There's really no wrong way to do it. Good, everyone. We'll stay here for just a little while. Good, about 5 more breaths. And if you want to extend that leg out long into the side, if that feels like the right thing to do for your hip, go ahead. Yeah, notice how that foot is arranged. Sometimes I like to roll the sole of the foot down to the floor so that the inner ankle kind of lifts up, but maybe you have a different way of doing this that feels better to you. It's okay if the knee is bent, somewhere in between. All right, and deep breaths to feel that lower belly moving, that left hip moving. Good. All right, let's bring that left leg nice and long behind. Reach back for your left foot with your left hand, and maybe you're propping yourself up on your right arm to make that grab a little bit easier. Good. You might use the strap and maybe even like sling the strap over your shoulder. That's been kind of my go-to these days. Nice, everyone. Yeah, if you have the space to reach around the top of the foot and kind of hold the inner edge of the foot and maybe that big toe, that's a thought. Nice, everyone. Yeah, a few more breaths. Great, and you can go ahead and release that back now. And it might be nice to bend both of your knees and rock them side to side, doing that windshield wiper thing, or maybe even taking your feet around in a circle, keeping them close to each other so that you can just, again, relieve that asymmetry, right? So when we practice one side then the other, it's always nice to find that neutralizing set of movements in the middle. Nice, yeah. And how about sending those legs back, tucking your toes underneath, and thinking about lifting those knees and pressing the heels back, really engage those toes. Eventually, we're gonna take a toe squat today, but this is kind of like just a little something on the way there. Good, and then go ahead and release those toes, and we're just gonna roll over onto our backs, keeping our strap nearby. Good, and we practiced this last week. I've really been enjoying this one. Banana pose using the strap overhead. So coming to lie down on your back, just think about Maybe picking up your pelvis and setting it back down so that your lower back is in an optimal position for you. And then your arms reach up and overhead and grab a hold of the strap with both of your arms or both of your hands. Let's slide the heels on over to the left here. And then the upper body also moves over to the left. Good, and then cross your left ankle over your right. Good, and notice that right armpits, the right side of your chest. The outer points of those upper ribs. And remember your tongue here, so maybe tucking the tip of your tongue up behind those upper teeth. And let's stay here for 15 to 20 breaths more. Perfect. Good. Let's take another handful of really nice breaths. And noticing that space at the upper ribs, the outer points of the upper ribs. And then the right side of your belly, close to the edge. And then down into your right hip crease, into the groin. Wonderful. Okay, let's make our way back through to the center. And as you find the center, release that strap. Let's bring the soles of the feet together and the knees out wide for a recline bound angle here. And I'm going to suggest maybe wrapping your arms over your chest. Sometimes it's nice to take like the opposite movement after all that big shoulder activity. And if you're wrapping those arms, think about walking your fingertips around, maybe towards the inner edges of your shoulder blades or wherever they end up, and just giving your upper back or the sides of your rib cage a little bit of like a massage here. And let's stay here for a couple minutes. A whole bunch of deep breaths. Good. 5 more breaths. Notice your big toes. Are they touching? Have they moved apart? See if you can bring them into contact with each other again. All right, really nice. Let's open those arms up again. Reach them overhead. Grab a hold of that strap and then extend the legs out long here too, and we'll slide those heels over to the left this time. Crossing that left ankle over the right. And then the upper body also moves off to the left. So sometimes when I move the upper body over, it becomes pretty clear to me that I need to change how my hands are positioned on the strap. Like maybe they need to be closer together or maybe further apart, depending on what's happening in the shoulders. Good, so taking time now. Ooh, did I have us go to the wrong side? We're just going to the other side. I kind of forget which side we already did. Good, take deep, deep breaths here. And notice the hip. Notice the feet. The muscles of your face. Wonderful. I'm going to spend just about another 10 deep breaths or so over here. And see if with your mind you can trace that line of the meridian. So from the tip of your big toe, up the side of the big toe, the inner arch of the foot, up into the inner ankle, the inside line of the calf, up towards the knee. Good, up the inner thigh, into the groin. The outside of your belly. Good. The tips of your ribs, those upper ribs. And let's just allow our breath to move that area, that whole line. Perfect. One more big breath here. Right, and then bring yourself back through to the center, and as you get there, let's find a recline bound angle or a constructive rest. So recline bound angle we took before with the soles of the feet together, knees wide, or maybe the knees stay bent and pointing up, and you drop the inner knees towards each other here. Good. And you can cross those arms over your chest again, or maybe you want to reach the arms out in some way, or even just let your hands rest on your low belly. Good. Why don't we take another 5 deep breaths here or so. Good. And then from here, let's draw the knees in wide to frame the chest, like as wide as they can go. And if you feel like a happy baby, this might be nice. In your happy baby, think about maybe grabbing a hold of your big toes if you can reach them. And take the thumb pads to the tip of the big toe and just give it a little massage there. And massaging all the way around the big toenail maybe. Right, and just another thought that if extending one leg out long into the side here works for you, you might decide to do that. You might keep your hand connected to it, or you might take the hand away, or even consider using the strap around the bottom of that foot that's extended out long and wide. Good, and then after a few breaths, switching it over to the other side. Good, and then bring yourself back through to the center, and let's take this recline bound angle happy baby mashup kind of pose here. The soles of your feet together, the knees out nice and wide. Right, and then let's take a little bit of time to roll ourselves up now into a seated position. And I think maybe it's time for our tennis ball. I think we're gonna use it this morning. Alrighty, so we're gonna use our tennis ball in a couple of different ways, but the first way we're gonna use it is is just by taking the tennis ball to just below your collarbone, right? So it's going to be right there, and there's a pressure point there. You're going to feel something maybe like a little, I know I always do, especially on this side, on my left side. It doesn't matter which side you start on, but let's just roll the tennis ball around in that like weird pressure point over here. There are so many different meridians that move through this area. The heart meridian kind of starts in the armpit, so it's not far away. Our lung meridian runs through this area as well. But this is also one of the first points of the spleen meridian. So now we're just gonna think about rolling it like kind of down. Yeah, so like down from the collarbone towards like the side of the breast, and like back up, and I always feel a whole bunch of like weird things moving around in there, all kinds of interesting sensations. All right, so just a few moments here, and as you're doing this, do your best to breathe, like breathe deeply. All right, really try to focus on your exhale out of the nose. Right, and then let's take it up to the place under the collarbone and just roll it across a little bit. One thing that worrying does to us, or just being under stress, is it causes this interesting condition called body armoring, where our body, our muscles literally tense up as if to like protect us from danger. Right, so we're just looking for all these little ways to help ourselves remain open and kind of free. And so many little tricks we can do. Right, and then we're gonna make our way over to the other side and just look, I almost jumped, and just look for that weird spot, right? It's in there somewhere. Okay, maybe this side is more pronounced than the other. Maybe this side is a little less weird than the other. Just kind of hanging in here for a moment. Yeah, rolling that ball around. At the start of the pandemic, I attended a yin yoga class where it was just like very tennis ball heavy. And we practiced the yin arm stretch, which we'll do later with a tennis ball. And I remember just like feeling like, oh my God, what is happening? It was just like the most intense thing I've ever experienced. But I think that it has a lot to do with that, like body armoring, all that stress that builds up. Right? Okay, so let's move that up and down now. So from that point, just under the collarbone, out on the outer edge of the ribs here, just to like maybe the upper part of the breast, all right, to just about the armpit level area. Right. Needless to say, that was a painful class. It was a painful class, but a good one. Right. Right, so giving yourself a few more moments here, moving kind of at that diagonal. Right, and then let's bring that tennis ball back up to the under part of the collarbone and just roll it across here. Right, good, maybe one more deep breath. Alrighty, and then let's release that tennis ball down, and we're just gonna take a little mudra with all this newfound freedom in the upper body. Let's take Vajrapradama mudra, interlacing your fingers, your thumbs point up. It's kind of like this little gate in front of your heart. Yeah, and I feel like maybe the opposite of worry is trust. This is a mudra to remind us of the importance of trust. Okay, to kind of help us remember that we can trust, that, that we are protected, okay, that we know the right thing to do. So unshakable trust in how things unfold, and unshakable trust in your own abilities. And let's take 10 big breaths here. Perfect. Okay, go ahead and release the hands. Give your fingers a little baby wiggle around. And I'm going to suggest sitting up on a blanket here, perhaps, especially if your hips or low back are feeling grumpy this morning. Mine definitely are. So having that little added bit of height can be super, super helpful. I'm going to practice a half dragonfly pose. So let's take that left leg out nice and long, and we're gonna snuggle that right heel up into the groin area. You might even take your right heel over towards your right hip crease, taking like a wider angle if that works in your body. Good, and let's just spend a couple moments with some self-massage here. So if you can go all the way down to the toe, that's cool. If not, no worries. But going to the toe, massaging up the inner part of your arch, up the inner part of the leg, ankle, and back down again. Okay, and it's okay, like you don't have to hit the exact points. Just giving yourself a little bit of little massage here, a little self-love. Good. All right, and then we're going to reach down for that left foot with the left hand. Reach that right arm up and overhead, and maybe even out past your head if that works for your shoulder. If your shoulder is feeling stressed, there's another way you can take this. You could bring a block to the inside line of that left leg or something like a block. Rest your head in your left hand, and then bend that right elbow and kind of interlace the fingers behind your head. Yeah. Good. And let's do what we can to stay here for maybe 15 breaths or so, something like that. And there is a lot going on here. So do what you can to just focus your attention in on your breath. Nice. Just another small handful of breaths here. All right, and then as you come back up, let's just think about finding center for a second here. We're going to keep that left leg out long. I like to wiggle my shoulders around a little bit after doing something kind of extreme with them. And this one is optional, but maybe a stargazer pose. So the right hand will come down to the floor behind you and you'll reach that left arm up. Okay, you can stay here, or if you want to, you could lift those hips as well and really stretch the entire left side of your body. Good, pressing your right hand into the floor. Good, a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Right, and then we'll sit the hips back down towards the floor. And just for a moment, let's take the soles of the feet down and kind of curl in on ourselves to help relieve a little bit of tension in the lower back. You can keep your head lifted, or you could drop your head down and maybe even sit your eye sockets onto the tops of your knees. That's always a fun one. As you take these deep breaths, notice your lower back. Notice any movement there. All right, and then start to lift yourself back up, and we'll just take it on over to the other side so that right leg extends out nice and long and wide. And that left heel kind of scoots in towards the rest of you. And then let's take that right hand and bring it down and along the inside line of that right leg, maybe even coming up to the toe. Just that little bit of massage. Good. Just another few big breaths worth of this massage. Great, and then see what you can do to reach for that right foot. Maybe you're wrapping a strap around the bottom of it. Okay, you might decide to stretch that left arm up or out past the head, or use that block trick if that really worked for you, if you really liked setting up your elbow on the block. And then interlacing the fingers and kind of resting your head in your hands. That's a favorite of mine. Good, we'll stay here for just a little bit. Take notice of what there is to notice in your body. And then do your best to kind of focus on the breath instead. Okay, so there's no right way for this to look. You just notice how it feels. Good. A couple more breaths. Okay, and then slowly release out of this. Take your time. Come to sit up nice and tall for a moment and shake those shoulders out. Good. And then that left hand comes down to the floor behind you. Reach that right arm up and maybe even lift up the hips. Oh, find your stargazer pose. Nice big stretch through the right side. Good. And then set yourself back down. And we're going to take a bound angle from here, a butterfly pose. But first, some self-massage, of course. I'm all about that these days. It just feels so nice. So let's grab a hold of your big toes with your whole hand. Like wrap your whole hand around your big toe and just give them a wiggle. Okay, give them a wiggle. Mine are always kind of cracky. Maybe yours are too. I don't know. Take a moment to just notice how things are feeling there. And then maybe you're moving it a little bit more slowly so that the stretch that you're feeling in between your big toe and your second toe is a little bit deeper. Maybe there's even kind of like, I imagine this is like milking a cow. Maybe like you're milking your toes like you're milking a cow. That sounds really weird. It's just a little like pulling action. Good, and then take your thumbs and run them up the edges of the toe or the inside edge of the big toe. All right, up the inside edge of the foot. And why not get into the arch just for laughs? Nothing wrong with a little arch massage. So really press those thumbs into those arches, dragging maybe from like the middle of the arch up to the edge, the inner edge of the foot. Almost like you're opening up your feet like they are a book, you know? And then we're gonna massage the inner ankle here just a little bit. And then we'll fold ourselves forward. Good. As you fold yourself in, take notice of the ribs. Think about gently drawing the ribs forward. Good. Allow your tongue to rest behind your teeth. Right, good. And then let's become a little bit taller here. Sit up nice and tall and draw the chest forward. Grab a hold of those ankles. You might wiggle the shoulders around just a little bit here. Right. And let's practice everybody's least favorite pose. The toe squat. Time for a good old toe squat. In toe squat, I'm a really big fan of something under the knees because if you don't, often you just jam your toes into the floor. And I feel like maybe that's not so great. So build yourself like a little bench, a little prop here for your knees. I have a blanket like a blanket brick on top of a block this morning. And then the toes are tucked underneath here. And why don't we take our hands back behind us, maybe even with the strap. And the hands can just sit at the lower back, or if you feel inclined to lift them up a touch, you could do that too. The head might drop down here. Good, a few more deep breaths. If you have those arms back behind you, think about wrapping them around now, kind of closing off the chest, finding space in the upper back. All right, and why don't we get on out of this thing? Let's take that little block away or the props and take the tops of the feet down to the floor and just give them a little tap, give them a little kick on the floor. Good. Eventually, we're going to find our bellies again. So getting yourself there in your own way. Maybe you're taking a downward dog. Maybe you want one of those this morning. And then finding your way onto your belly for a plank pose. Or maybe you just want to slide right out onto your belly. That's great too. Great. And as we find your belly, returning to that familiar shape, stretching the arms out nice and long and wide to the sides, palms facing down. Good. From here, we're going to turn our head so that the left cheek is down on the floor. And we're going to roll over to the left side. And as you roll over to the left side, think about bending the right knee and placing the sole of the right foot down on the floor behind the left knee. Okay. If having your head hanging in space feels a little weird, you can take something underneath your head. Think about your right big toe really pressing into the floor here just to create some stability. Good, and then start to bring yourself through to the center, and we're just gonna slide our way over to the other side, that right arm nice and long behind you. Good, let's bend that left knee and place the sole of the left foot down on the floor behind the right leg, perhaps. Good. Yeah, that left hand can be on the floor. You might wrap it around or take it to the hip. Yeah, something underneath the head for a little bit more support, perhaps. Good, just maybe 5 more breaths over on this side. Good, and then let's bring ourselves back through to the center just for one more moment here. You might take your arms and curl them underneath your chest so that your forearms kind of press into those outer edges of the ribcage. Your head to one side or the other. Good, and you can choose to stay here for the rest of the practice, or if you want to roll over on your back into Shavasana or some other final pose, you're welcome to do that too. And so just taking time to figure out what the right thing is for you. Good, yeah, maybe covering up with a blanket. And so it is said that the spleen houses the body's thoughts and intentions. The body's thoughts and intentions. I kind of love that. Okay, that energy is called Yi. You might consider an intention for yourself today. We also just had the new moon the other day, commonly a time of setting intentions. And so what do you need to bring in? What do you need to let go of? We might not always have all the answers or all the words, but allowing ourselves the space to ponder, maybe just a little bit. Good. Maybe just another 5 to 7 breaths here, really filling yourself up on your inhale, emptying out on your exhale. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing and gave it up and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang. And moving your body in the way that makes the most sense to you right now, coming out of that practice of yours, coming out of the time you've spent kind of observing yourself. Good, and coming up to your seat as you feel Incline too. Why don't we just take our hands and place them on our heart in a nice little pile there. Good, and a deep breath in to pick up the heart, lifting it up into the hands, broadening those collarbones. And a deep breath out to drop the head down towards the hands and the heart, honoring this time we've spent together, honoring your practice, honoring each other. Oh, happy Sunday, everybody. Happy, beautiful, gorgeous day. I hope you have a really fantastic day today. Yeah, you can turn your mic on if you feel like chatting at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. You're welcome. So tomorrow's schedule will be a little different. There's no morning class because I was reminded that it's a holiday. I mean, everything's so like weird these days that I totally forgot. It's just the night class tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. I will. Anybody else see you later, Lauren? Yay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Danielle.